So y'all got to buckle up because the level of insanity that we're about to discuss, it's beyond parody at this point. So we had the very own U.S. Department of Agriculture, that is the USDA. Y'all, they've decided to bless the world with some groundbreaking, earth-shattering research. And this research is on menstrual cycles. But here's the thing. It's not just any study on menstrual cycles and women's health. No, they took it to a whole nother level. We're talking about a $600,000 taxpayer funded study on menstruation in transgender men and non-binary persons. I did not stutter. I did not misspeak. This is your hard-earned tax dollars. This is what it's going toward. Not infrastructure. No. Not actual agricultural research that, aligns with the mission of the USDA. No. They did a study on how biological women who identify as men experience menstruation. So we're at a point now where the absurdity is very, very thick. And I want to kind of cut through the foolishness and kind of just tell you guys what's going on. In my opinion, this is absolutely absurd. And so the first thing we need to do, we kind of got to talk about the elephant in the room. There's a really big elephant in the room. And the thing is, if you're having a menstrual cycle, I don't know if nobody told you, but that would mean you're biologically female, right? Like that's not up for debate. There's no asterisks, next to these laws of biology. God just designed it that way. However, the secular world, in all of its wisdom, or should I say foolishness, they've decided that reality is just this social construct, right? So instead of addressing real issues like, food insecurity or economic instability, the U.S. government, our government, they are more concerned with validating delusions and making sure this tiny fraction of people, they got to make them feel seen, but seen in their confusion. And I think that's the part that's just ridiculous. And it's more than just ridiculous. It's actually infuriating because we're constantly told, there's not enough money, for critical things like border security or veterans benefits or even schooling and education, or how what's the dude with the ultra perm? Al Green was waving, his little cane talking about Medicaid and Medicare. Somehow they found some spares $600,000 just lying around somewhere to research periods in women who think that they are men. And so at this point, to me, I'm like, okay, all right, the insanity has no limits. And so what we need to do is figure out who benefits from this. Can we follow the money? So now what we want to do, I want to take it a little step further by asking the question of who is really benefiting from this nonsense, because we know it's not you and I, right? It's not the American people. And it is certainly not the farmers. Like farmers could actually use the USDA's funding for like legitimate agricultural research. Like I'm not anti-science. Hey, if you want to do some agricultural research, have at it. But the question is, who is getting rich from these absurd projects? And so I'm going to tell you who. I will tell you who was getting. Did my pen? Oh no. Oh. I'm going to, y'all, you know how when you be trying to push it down and it, don't worry about it. It's fine. Let me tell you who is benefiting from this. You have academia and the radical gender ideology machine. So this includes, these are your universities and your research institutions. They apply for these grants. They get thousands, hundreds of taxpayer dollars, and then they churn out these studies that, surprise, validate the very ideology that they were pushing in the first place, right? It's like a self-feeding cycle. And they get funding to prove their gender theories, because they are theories, but then those studies get used to justify more funding for future projects. So it's like this big old scam that never ends. And then here's what's worse. What's worse is that the studies get cited by the politicians, the activists cite them, and then they get on like CNN and MSNBC to push for more policies that reshape the society according to their delusions. So they claim that it's science, right? But it's nothing more. This is activism with a fancy little title. And so this is why we got to thank God for Elon Musk. Elon Musk and DOGE, they've declared war on this government waste. And this, my friends, is why we need to be thankful for them. And this is why the work that they're doing is so important. Because people question, why do we need watchdogs for government waste and corruption? Just to point them, we can point them to stories like this. Right? So Elon Musk, through his platform X, that I'm grateful that he purchased, he's been exposing the wasteful, manipulative, and corrupt use of the taxpayer dollar. And it's used for these kinds of projects just like this. And if you just want to be honest about it, this is the kind of nonsense we know is happening. But imagining what's happening behind closed doors, like the stuff we don't know, the stuff we've yet to find out about. We're actually living in a country where parents cannot afford groceries. Like you're deciding, am I going to eat, or are we going to eat, or is the baby going to eat? Right? We're looking at inflation that was through the roof for the past 4 years. Things are actively being done to get that down, but it hasn't happened yet. And then you know, the actual farmers. Farmers are struggling under government bureaucracy and red tape. And yet somehow the USDA, they have time to fund radical gender ideology in the name of science. All this time when, I don't know if you've gone to the grocery store. Our family, we like to eat as clean as possible. As much as it depends on us, if it's available in organic, we're going to get organic over conventional all day. Strawberry, especially the clean 15 and the dirty, what is the dirty dozen and the clean 15? There's just this group of fruits and vegetables I don't play with. I don't buy conventional strawberries or blueberries. I don't eat conventional apples at all. I just don't. We could be using this money to make, I don't know, organic so much more affordable, where we don't have to deal with pesticides and glyphosate and things like that. But no, they want to spend $600,000 studying women who are biologically women, but they're identifying as men and they're menstruating. So to me, this is not science. This is propaganda. And it is another example of how the government is using our money to fund its leftist, freak nasty agenda. And I am here to call it out. So the last thing I want to do on this topic is let's explore some biblical truth about gender. I can't broach this topic without getting to the heart of the issue. Cannot do that. At its core, yes, I want to highlight that this is bad policy. Yes, I want to highlight that this is government waste, and it is. But deeper than that, this is a spiritual war, right? This is an outright rebellion against God's created order, and these people are just in full-blown rebellion. I want to read to you how the Bible is clear, and I read from Genesis a lot because sometimes you just got to go back to the basics. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Y'all, there's no third option. There is no third option. There's no spectrum here, right? God made men and women distinctly. He made them for purposes, so he made them purposefully, and he made them in their gender expression perfect. There was no mistake there. And so any attempt to redefine what he has set in place, it is not just foolish, but it is sinful. And so when I first started my channel, I think it's amazing that when I first started the channel in the very early days, I led my little tiny crew of subscribers. We memorized. I don't know how many of y'all were rocking with me back then, but we memorized the entire first chapter of Romans 1. And as I approach 100,000 subscribers, I look back on that time because there was just so much going on in the world at that time, so much going on in my life at that time. And I'm reminded of Romans 1 when I have to do stories like this. It's the word of God that ultimately roots my arguments and warns us about what happens when a society, when they are actively suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. Think of like a beach ball and you're in the pool and it's inflated, and you want to, when you get on top of it and you're pushing it down, and when you let go it pops up. That active suppression, that's what these people are doing. Verse 21 to 22 clearly says, for although they knew God, meaning not knew him in a salvific sense, but Romans 1 in the previous verses before this, it already declares God's law is written on our hearts. We can see the manifestation that there is a God and he exists in the things that have been made. So all of us, even the most wicked and vile man or woman who claims to be an atheist, no, they're just suppressing the truth in their unrighteousness. And the scripture goes on to say, for although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him. But here's what they do. They became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and then worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator. This is what all that pride is about. Pride this, pride that. They're worshiping themselves. They're not worshiping the one true God. They have replaced the worship of the one true God for worship of their sinful flesh. And so we're watching this play out in real time. And while it's easy for us to be like, this is crazy, these people, they're a little crazy, the world, they are running headfirst into madness. And then what's worse, though, is they're using our money to do it. So it's granted, money is not, it doesn't have any eternal value, right? But while we're here to like see your money be used this way, you just be like, you feel some sort of kind of way about it. But here's what we can't do. Y'all, we cannot get discouraged, right? We can't back down for sure. We stand firm in the truth. And what we do is we just continue to fight for what's right. So that's going to mean you got to call out this nonsense for what it is. You have to approach the lie with the truth. And that's going to mean you got to stand up in schools, stand up in our churches, in our communities, and refuse to play along with the lies. And then most importantly, the scriptures teach that our children are supposed to be raised in the fear and admonition of the Lord. So we have to teach biblical truth to our children before the world gets to them with its deception. Because once those seeds of deception are planted and they take root, it does become harder to root out the deception. And so start early. You start them while they're young. So what's the takeaway? Number one, our government is funding complete and utter nonsense with our tax dollars. But number two, people like Elon Musk and DOGE, yes, they are working so that our so-called journalists, they're doing the work that the journalists refuse to do. They're exposing all of the rot that's at the core of these institutions. And so while leftists want to continue to hold up little paddle signs and say Elon is stealing, it's because they don't want you to know about what these people have been really up to. And number three, y'all, the truth is not, it is not up for debate. His design for men and women, it's not open to interpretation, right? So there's no amount of government funding or propaganda or social pressure that's ever going to change that.